we lived there for a while, and Dad went to night school then, trying to learn how to work on TVs. And so I was left alone at night. And of course, you guys all know how desperately afraid of mice I am. Well, that place was crawling with mice. We used to try to set traps and everything, but they seemed to outsmart the traps. And when Dad would leave, why, I'd get on this platform rocking chair, had the TV in front of me, I had me a few little snacks to eat, because I knew as soon as he left, the mice would come out and start playing in the middle of the floor.
They had no fear of you at all.
They had no fear. I used to keep things on that table.
Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about these mice that had no fear of you.
They didn't. I used to try to find little things that I could keep on that night table by me, and I would throw at them when they come running out, because 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 of them would come out and they just play in the middle of the floor. And they was not one bit scared of me. And so I'd throw things at them, and they kind of stop and look for a minute when I'd throw it, but then they'd keep right on out there. Well, when I had nothing else left to throw, I used to put my feet up, and no matter if I had to go to the bathroom, no matter how bad I wanted to drink water, I went without until Dad got home. And then when he got home, it seemed like they all went back under the refrigerator behind that cabinet we had, and then you didn't see them anymore.
They kind of knew the old pattern, the routine,
yeah, they knew exactly what to do.
All right, now Dad, during this time, me and Mom was talking about what kind of work you were doing. What was you doing at that time? You look sounded like you might have been working with a couple of...
When I worked there at Nellie's, I worked at Alec Robertson's, because remember that big guy with that kid used to live over there too? And he was a truck driver.
When was it you worked with Bob at General Motors?
Oh, I don't remember just where we was living at that time.
Okay, well go ahead with your...
But anyway, it doesn't make any difference where we was living.
What was you doing? Some of the jobs you were doing, Dad, at that time?
At Alec Robertson, I was driving a dump truck, and also I worked, when I wasn't driving a dump truck, you know, sometimes the truck would break down. They'd give me this old truck to drive, so it wouldn't seem to hold up very long, so it's...
Is that like that corn binder that Pirate was driving?
Yeah. It was a Ford truck, and it kept breaking an axle. And they'd get really uptight when that axle would break. And it's the only truck they had, but they need to get the work done. So they'd put me on this truck, and they said, well, don't worry about it, Ray. You know, anybody that drives it has the same problem. You know, the weight is put on a certain way, it breaks the axles break on that old truck. But that's what I was doing, and when the axle was broken, I wasn't driving, then I had to work with the laborers, working in the ditches, cleaning up and different things, helping to get pipes and stuff down in the ditch, and the welders would weld it up, and they'd cover it back.
Was that kind of like I know you were a truck driver, but the company itself, was it like a construction company?
Construction, wasn't it?
A road construction?
Pipe construction.
Pipe construction on the road or something? Okay. So that's pretty cool.
That's all they did was put in pipe. They're putting in this 30-inch natural gas pipe from Texas.
Okay.
And so that's what I was doing mostly when I worked with Alec Robertson. It was putting in pipes in the ground.
Sounds like you also worked with Uncle Bob, your Aunt Bonnie's, your sister Bob's, or your sister's husband, Robert, at GM, was it?
Yeah, GM.
Yeah, there's a period of time, about 3 months, I worked at
GM.
General Motors, building cars down there in Southgate. And when I got tired of working there, I just didn't keep like the work that they gave me. When I went to work there, I was supposed to be unloading boxcars. And they kept taking me off there and putting me on let's see, what do they call it?
Assembly lines.
On the assembly line. Yeah. They put me on the assembly line, putting things together on the car. And after you learn how to do one thing, they'd give you another one, then another one, and they never did get caught up. They always give you something extra to do that you couldn't quite keep caught up to do. And that irritated me, and finally I just quit. And I went over and told Bob, my brother-in-law, that's Bonnie and Bob. I told Bob, he was working there with me, and I told him that I quit so that I'd come back and get him tonight. So I says, if I'm a little bit late, don't worry. that I'll be there to pick him up. And he saw, heck, he says, I quit too. And he took his grinder. He's working on a grinder on a car behind the welders. And he gave this grinder a big toss on the floor, and we stomped on out of there. So I don't know. I guess he thought it was pretty cool to quit working when I did.
You had a variety of work, didn't you? You was never afraid of any kind of work. You just tackled
Do
anything.
you remember working at Fleur's?
Yeah, I worked at Flores for a while as
Draftsman?
I was working as a draftsman. When I first went to work there, I worked on these machines that took the blueprints, and then we'd have so many blueprints to run, and then we'd fold them up. We'd take them off the machine, and we'd fold them up and get them ready to go out. And so I did that for a while at Floors. And then I got another drafting job working at a refrigeration engineering company. And that's all they did was make designs for air conditioning units. So they'd make, 1 ton, 2 ton, 3 ton, or 2.5 or whatever. And they'd give us a scale to go by to draw the plans, and they'd tell us how they would want them drawn, and then I'd draw the blueprint. As a
Remember you
draftsman.
also worked in the big machine, what do they call it, turn lathe or something like that? Machine?
Oh, that's a machine shop.
Yeah.
I worked with a friend of mine I went to school with. He was working at a machine shop, and there for a while I worked at this machine shop.
And you lied, told them you knew how.
Yeah. Do you know what a turret lathe is?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was, a turret lathe. And a turret lathe is a machine it has an operation that you put a stock of material in the chuck. And the more you keep talking and talking about different things, if you don't know anything about machine work, why it gets more complicated. So we'll just let it go there, that I would put the stock in the machine and in the chuck. And then as I went through the different operations in the chuck, I'd make different things. And what I was specifically making at this one time mostly was faucets. And so I'd make faucets, and you'd turn it all out.
Seemed like you were doing more work there than what they really wanted you doing, at least your co-workers, right?
Well, I was doing, in production, I was doing a lot more than the rest of the people are doing, and I didn't know how many they was putting out. But just say that I was putting out, the day shift would maybe make 100 faucets a day, and maybe I'd probably be making 200 or 300 faucets a day. It seemed like they quit worrying about making faucets, they was worried about how many I was making, so they would take a mic on my work in the daytime to see if my work was done right, to see if they couldn't say, well, my work isn't right, and they'd try to condemn it, but they couldn't find anything wrong with my work. So much for that.
We got about 3 minutes here. Mom, at this time, was you working, doing anything at all, or
Yeah.
or was you too busy throwing shoes and things at rats?
No, backing up a little bit, when we lived in Paul's Shack, I worked at a place called Ready Spud, and it was a potato factory. And there they prepared potatoes for restaurants, schools, anything commercial. And you peeled these potatoes, and they had different machines, whether they made them into French fries or hash browns or whatever they was going to use them on. But my job solely was just peeling potatoes.
That's why you're so good at it today, huh?
Fast as I could go. They'd come down on a belt, and we had to pick them up and just start scraping them as best we could, as fast as we could. I also worked at a movie theater. That's another story about rats. I mean, because you had to change your uniform. We had to wear uniforms, and you had to go backstage where the screen came down, and the dressing room was upstairs, and it was just full of rats back there. And I used to be just petrified to have to go there because I kid you not, it wasn't mice, it was rats. And one time I went in there, and there was this rat, and I kid you not, it was about that long. and it was sitting up on its hind feet. Somebody left a box of popcorn on the dressing table in there, and that rat was sitting on its 2 feet with its little front feet eating popcorn out of that box. I let out a scream, and the manager, his name was Mr. Black, he hurried and grabbed Art, the doorman. They thought maybe somebody was back there raping me or something because they heard this scream, and all the people in the movie theater heard it. And they come running back there and wanted to know what in the world was wrong, and I said, there's a rat. I said, it's eating popcorn out of that box. They go, oh, for crying out loud. You screamed and got the whole theater upset because you seen a rat? And I said, yes, I'm scared of them. And they said, well, just it makes you feel any better. They're full of them. They said, be careful where you put your feet if you ever sit in here and watch a movie. So if you ever notice when I go to a movie, I always have my feet up on top of the seat. I never, ever, ever let my feet on the floor.
Hated rats.
Hated rats. Scared to death of them.
What other work
That
did you
reminds
do?
me, while we're still on the subject, Kay's brother Robert worked at General Motors, the same place we did, and Robert worked on assembly line where me and Bob, we worked on different areas, but Kay's brother Bob worked on the assembly line.
That
We all
sounds,
worked together.
that sounds funny for you to call him Robert. Nobody ever calls him Robert. Yeah, I have to take a
Oh.
double take each time he does
Uncle
that.
Bob,
Kay's
right?
brother Bob.
My brother Bob, Uncle Bob, was he likes to be called Brother Bob. Or at least in his old age he did.
All right. On our next sequence, because we only got a minute here left, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Friday nights and how you got Dad so far in debt he'll never ever get out of debt again. So we'll talk about that on our next segment. But
Okay,
anyway, great years, huh?
great years.
Yeah. You know, it seems like them hungry years, they're kind of difficult to go through while you're doing it. But boy, when you look back, they were some of the greatest times of your life.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, this
When we
is...
was living there in Nelly Shack, we was really poor. That's when we used to live on avocados, and Flo and I looked for pop bottles to get enough money to buy a loaf of bread to split between us. And then Grandma would send over eggs every once in a while, and every once in a while she'd send a chicken over. But basically, that's what we lived on the whole time that we was living there, didn't we, honey?
Thank goodness for parents. Seems like when you're first starting out in life, you have nothing.
Oh, my daddy used to say, when you come to this old world, you don't have anything, and when you leave, you're going to leave the same way.
All right. I love you guys. We're going to go ahead and end it right here because we're out of tape.
Okay.
And we'll start the next one maybe next week. Okay.
Good enough.
We'll hear about that helicopter too.
Okay. How about the pirate and chain?
Yeah, we could do that too. All right. Bye.